Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marla McGuinness. I'll be your moderator for today's post-cabinet media availability. We're joined by Premier Tim Houston, who's now happy to take questions from media.
Premier, are we getting a carbon tax?
There's lots of discussions ongoing as to how we go forward with that. Obviously, the federal government has some requirements, but a couple of things that I would say is the document that was released. I'm very concerned about that. First off, it's old. Second off, it contains very, very sensitive information, information that has the potential to have an impact on the market. So we have to be conscious of that stuff. So the fact that it was released is a big concern. It should have never been in the public realm, and the reason being is it has impacts on the marketplace. So I want to tell you first off that we're taking that very serious, and there'll be a fulsome investigation to find out how that happened. But in terms of your general question, I mean, obviously the federal government has requirements. For us as a province, and certainly for me, Nova Scotians are my only concern. I'm concerned about the cost of living. I'm concerned about fuel prices. I'm also concerned about the environment and the future of our planet. But Nova Scotians are always front and center for me. So there's ongoing discussions with the federal government. There's lots of analysis happening within the department that's more current and relevant. But we'll see how it shakes out. But we know that the federal government has some requirements, but I would just say that Nova Scotians are my concern.
The document you're talking about said, and to your point, it's about a year old, but a year ago the document says to the government of the day, we need a decision now. We're running out of time. We need to decide what path to take so that we can then iron out the details of that. In light of that, how is it possible that with just 6 months left, it made up its mind yet about what path it's going to pursue?
Look, I'm not going to speak to the document because it's very, very sensitive information. It should have never been in the public realm. What I would say is we as a government understand the urgency of the requirements that the federal government has pushed down onto us. So, of course, we understand their requirements. And the reason these things take time is we have to assess every option to make sure that Nova Scotians are protected. We know the impact of the cost of fuel. We know the impact that the stress that Nova Scotians are under because of general inflation. So certainly Nova Scotians should know that I will do everything possible to protect them in any way that I can and that our government can from increases. So we know the urgency of the federal government's requirements, and it's an active file within the department.
I know when cap and trade was adopted, it took more than a year from the time the legislation was passed to the time that the system was actually ready to hit the ground. I'll ask you to comment on the document, but clearly there needs to be a lot of time if Nova Scotia is going to either change its cap and trade system or it's going to adopt a new system such as a carbon tax. It seems hard to imagine that, you know, with only half a year left, we haven't reached a point where there's a preferred option. Is there now a preferred option that the government is working toward?
Yeah, the preferred option is to protect Nova Scotians at every single opportunity we have, and that's what we'll do, and certainly respect your opinions on what's possible and the timeline it might take. But we also have opinions, and we also have one goal: protect Nova Scotians.
So will we be avoiding the sorts of increases in prices that other provinces that have carbon taxes have seen?
Our goal is to protect Nova Scotians. We understand the pressure that they're under. I mean, obviously, we have requirements from the federal government, but my only obligation is to Nova Scotians, and that's where it remains.
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but just to put a fine point on this, and I don't mean to belabor it, but what I hear you saying, and I want to make sure I've got this right, is we haven't landed on what stream we're going to do yet. But even though we haven't, it's the advice you're receiving that there's still time to get this done. You're not concerned about the clock running out this year and us not having something in place to keep us on the positive side of the feds.
The only thing I'm concerned about is the impact on Nova Scotians. The rest will work with other parties, other governments. There's lots of work happening on this file, but the only goal that I've given to the government is to make sure that we do everything we can to protect Nova Scotians.
I'm just wondering if we could turn to Bill 75 and the decision this week. Your office told us the day this decision was released that the government wouldn't be appealing. I'm just wondering, this is a bill that you personally opposed when it was before the House. What do you make of the decision?
Look, we respect the decisions of the courts, and we have certainly had our opinions on that. When we came to government, this was already in process. So, of course, the courts have now weighed in, and I think where we're at is we're obviously, our goal, our objective is to make sure we have open and honest bargaining with Nova Scotians, and that's what we're doing. I think we've shown that already in at least one example. There's lots more on the that are moving forward, but we won't be appealing that decision, and we'll be working certainly in good faith, as the courts have asked, with the other parties on remedies moving forward. We'll work in good faith on those. We want to have those discussions, but Nova Scotians will see that we're a government that bargains openly and honestly, fairly, and of course tough negotiations. There will be. These are going to be all negotiations are meant to be. Should be contentious if you're strong in your positions, but we'll negotiate fairly. We'll move forward. We accept the court's decision. We'll move forward.
I'm not quite clear on next steps. The remedy will be negotiated with the NSTU. Is that correct?
The courts have asked that the parties discuss what remedies there should be, and we'll do that.
Will they have a financial figure that remedy is going to cost the province?
Well, there's already been a new negotiation happening since then. So, our position and Minister McMaster will certainly has and will continue to talk more about this. But I mean, when we sit down to negotiate, we're open to. I know some of the things that are important to the union membership, and they bring those to the table, and we discuss those moving forward. So,
does that include the provisions that they lost because of the bill? Mainly, I guess it was an arbitrator for unresolved disputes and working conditions, additional professional development days, and the long-term service award. Are all those things up for renegotiation?
Yeah, I think I would never want to presuppose the outcome of a negotiation, but certainly I would encourage both sides to go to the table with the things that they want to talk about, and all of those things would and should be included in a discussion moving forward.
You're playing the hand you were dealt. You can't do anything about this, but at a time that you're trying to get money for a whole bunch of other things, how concerned are you about the financial implications of Bill 75 and Bill 148 in the short and long term to the bottom line?
Look, the labor costs of the provincial budget are significant. We have a lot of Nova Scotians providing services to Nova Scotians and doing good work at it. And they should be fairly compensated, and where they belong to a union, that fair compensation should be the result of honest negotiations back and forth, and that's what we'll do. We know in government we spend a lot of time talking about what things cost, but look, the opportunities before this province to grow the economy of this province are very, very significant. And that's where my focus is. But people who are providing services to Nova Scotians, people who are working in Nova Scotia, should be fairly compensated. And where they're part of a union, that should come as a result of a union negotiation.
We asked Minister McMaster about Bill 148 when you were away earlier this spring, and he said that the government wouldn't be rescinding it as it had promised during the election last year. This decision, this Bill 75 decision, didn't deal with long service award, specifically because the judge said the constitutionality of 148 has never been decided. So he had to presume that it was constitutional. What's going to happen with Bill 148 now? Clearly this decision sort of puts it back into play.
So I am dealing the hand I was dealt on a lot of these things, but I do take your point, and I do agree that as we look at these issues going forward, we should always incorporate new information, and certainly the court's ruling on Bill 75 is a new piece of information. So there's ongoing discussions. Minister McMaster will speak to this more so. He's much more involved in that. But look, there's a lot of similarities between Bill 75 and Bill 148. So we owe it to Nova Scotians to take a look at where that goes next.
Premier, when it comes to healthcare, the action plan. The action plan you guys released in late April came out with identifying places to tackle the crisis. It was criticized for not having benchmarks or targets within it. I'm wondering, where are those benchmarks and targets now that that plan's been released?
Yeah, so I'm really proud of that action for healthcare. I mean, that was the first plan of any sort that's been advanced by the province of Nova Scotia in I think it's over a decade, but certainly probably longer than that. So that's a very, very significant document. A lot of work went into that, and there's reasons for Nova Scotians to be proud of that document and that plan. Of course, our commitment is to continue to let it evolve and fine tune it and continue to. It's a working document in many respects, but it's certainly at that point in time is our view as to how the steps that are necessary to improve access to healthcare and to fix healthcare in this province. So we did commit to add some dates and some benchmarks, and that work is ongoing. And I think the commitment was that Nova Scotians would start to see that heading into early summer, which we're at now, and I suspect that those things they're coming soon.
How concerned is the government when we're seeing, anecdotally numbers like, 95,000 Nova Scotians on the primary doctor wait list? The surgery backlog continues. It keeps getting worse, and this government obviously ran on a big campaign to fix it and provide some record spending. How are you feeling? How's your responsibility in fixing this healthcare system feeling today when things seem to be just continuing to go down?
Look, the healthcare system is under incredible stress. I've always been very upfront that it's the number one focus is fixing healthcare, making sure Nova Scotians can access healthcare. That remains my number one focus. We were very clear with Nova Scotians that it would cost money and that it would take time. And we're also clear that it would probably get worse before it gets better. That's also the hand we were dealt. But we're focused on that. And look, we have made a significant number of improvements to healthcare. They're all incremental. We need a lot more to go. There's many more steps to be taken. But for anyone to suggest that we're not taking any steps, and I know you're not, but to anyone to suggest that would be completely wrong. I'm very confident in the health leadership team. I'm very confident in those people that are providing health care to Nova Scotians. We're going to turn this around. We will.
To measure the success of those little, you said parts and pieces, we need benchmarks, we need targets, and until then, it might feel like you're just putting in fires. I don't know, but when do we actually see some?
Yeah, they're coming. We expect. Well, they'll be shortly. I mean, I don't have the exact date, but we can get that. But I know that that's happening. But look, there's just as there's lots of anecdotal stories about how difficult things are in the healthcare system. There's also lots of anecdotal stories about how things are improving, and I've certainly heard from paramedics who will tell me at the end of the day that I was able to do this many more calls because I didn't have to do these transfers. Now they'll be saying I was able to do this many more calls because I was able to offload my patient. So there's a lot of positive news, anecdotal stories as well. And as soon as anyone wants to report on those, we'll be happy to be part of those stories. But I will tell you, they exist, and Nova Scotians know they exist.
Can we jump to the phone lines for? We'll come back to you. We've got Jennifer Henderson on the line. Jennifer, are you there?
Hi, yes, thanks very much. Good afternoon, Premier. I just want to follow up on, I think it was Keith's question about the healthcare system and the promise to fix it. You did say it could get worse before it gets better. I think a lot of Nova Scotians think it has got worse. If you look at the wait times for many services like colonoscopies or beds at nursing homes, there's a whole long list I won't bore you with. You're more familiar than I am. But my question is simply, when are things going to get better for patients?
Look, it's a number one focus of our government. Of course, the wait list for surgery wait times and others are something that cause a lot of stress. We all lose sleep over that. But I think most people also realize that COVID has had an impact on those types of lists. So we're taking a lot of steps. What I would say on the need of family practice registry, also a national problem for sure on a big scale. But here in Nova Scotia, let's not forget that for everyone who's on that list, they have access to virtual care. And I continue to hear stories from people who have had to use that and have been very pleased with it. We know there are other ways that people can access care, and healthcare is changing. But my goal is to make sure that people can access care. We have to recruit, we have to retain. We know that there's a lot that has to be done. But I would say to Nova Scotians that if they should know, number one, that this is our number one focus as a government. They should see that commitment from the amount of changes we've made, which have come from healthcare workers. They should see that commitment in the plan that's been put forward before them. And look, they'll start to see that in their communities, and some of that is happening already. But this is a big issue. There was an entire election campaign on this issue for that reason. It's big. It impacts every Nova Scotian, and we're focused on it. And to your answer, to the specific question, is I would say there are areas, there are pockets where the win is already now. It's already happening, those improvements. But there's a lot of work to be done, and we're committed to doing it.
Jennifer, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, and I'll be brief. It's just whether or not the government is giving any more consideration to reducing the percentage of tax it is taking on gasoline and diesel at the pumps. There's two places it could be reduced, the provincial motive tax or a percentage of the HST. I know you talked about this 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to ask again. Are you considering, reducing the percentage at the pumps?
The overall cost of living, I mean, the pressure that's putting on families, we know, we feel that, we see it in our communities, we see it in our own social circles. It's very, very significant. But we're looking for opportunities that are sustainable, that are long term. So in the case of the motive fuel tax, that's a fixed tax that's there. I mean, the HST is variable with the price, but we have to make sure when we look at the sustainability of any changes that we actually understand what's happening. So in terms of the HST on fuel, yes, the price of fuel is higher. That implies a higher HST collection. But we know there's also many cases where people are spending on fuel what they might have spent on something else. So maybe they're not going out to eat because they're spending on fuel. So we don't know the overall impact on the finances of the province. And I'll say it again, I understand the pressures that people are under. But, we just had a previous question is when are you going to fix health care? So if we make changes that take money away from things like healthcare, we just have to understand what those ramifications are. So that's what we're doing. But we know that the inflationary prices increases pressure on Nova Scotians, and not just on Nova Scotians, they're on Canadians, and they're on every citizen of the world. But we feel them, and we'll look for sustainable opportunities to support Nova Scotians.
We are running out of time, so we'll just go back to Alicia for one last question.
Premier, is there a timeline for when the physician resource plan will be finished, and how will that help shape what comes next, specifically for doctor recruitment?
Yeah, so lots of focus on retention and recruitment for sure. So we have the office is very focused on that. We know the resource plan is something that is in the works alongside in conjunction with the metrics and the timeline for the overall plan. So I would say, look, it's certainly over the course of the summer. There'll be a lot more information available on those, but the focus is laser right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks everyone.